Elara would never forget the sound of that knock. It was not a normal sound. It was 3 sharp, frantic, desperate raps on her apartment door at exactly midnight on a Tuesday. The silence of her small Chicago apartment, a moment before so peaceful, was violently shattered. This was not the casual tap of a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. It was not the confident, rhythmic bang of a delivery driver. This was a knock of pure, animal terror. It was the kind of urgent, panicked sound that makes your heart stop cold in your chest before your brain even has a chance to catch up. Elara had been in her pajamas, a worn gray t-shirt and flannel pants. She was in the bathroom, just about to brush her teeth, the water running. The sound was so jarring it felt like a physical blow. Her first thought, a fleeting, naive one, was that someone had the wrong door. Her second thought died instantly, dissolving into a cold, metallic dread the moment she pulled the door open. Before we see who was at the door, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have your notifications on. You will not want to miss what Elara does next. Standing in the dimly lit, sterile yellow light of the apartment hallway, swaying as if she might collapse at any second, was Seraphina, her sister. Her identical twin. But it was not Seraphina, not the Seraphina she knew. Elara felt the air physically leave her lungs, a silent whoosh of shock. It was not just the surprise of seeing her, unannounced, in the middle of a weeknight. It was her face. Elara's mind, usually so sharp and quick, struggled to process the image before her. Seraphina's left eye was swollen completely shut. The skin around it was not just bruised. It was a deep, grotesque, swollen landscape of purple and black, and a sickly yellow, as if a small, rotten fruit had been smashed against her skin. Her bottom lip was split open, wide and raw, caked with drying, brownish-black blood. But the worst part, the part that made Elara's stomach clench and drop to her feet, the part that turned her blood to ice, were the bruises on her neck. They were not just smudges. They were dark, distinct, perfectly formed fingerprint-shaped marks wrapped around her throat like a horrible, violent necklace. They showed exactly where someone's hands had been. Where someone had squeezed, and squeezed hard. "Elara," Seraphina whispered. Her voice was not her voice. It was a broken, tiny sound, a fragile thing that barely carried the one word. It was the sound of something shattered. Then, as if that single word had taken the last ounce of strength she possessed, her eyes rolled back slightly and her knees gave out. Elara lunged forward, her body moving on pure, trained instinct. She caught her sister before she could hit the hard tile of the entryway. Seraphina felt terrifyingly light in her arms, like a bird. Elara hooked an arm around Seraphina's waist, dragging her inside the apartment and slamming the door shut with her heel. The sound echoed in the small space. She threw the deadbolt. The metallic clack was a final, punctuating note of safety. Elara's hands were shaking, but not with fear. It was rage. A sudden, ice-cold rage that flooded her veins, chasing away the shock and leaving a terrible, sharp clarity in its place. She guided Seraphina the few feet to the couch. Her sister was trembling all over, a constant, violent vibration, making tiny, gasping sounds, as if she could not quite remember the simple, automatic mechanics of breathing. Who did this? Elara did not ask it as a question. She stated it, her voice a low, dangerous growl she did not recognize as her own. She already knew, in her heart, in her gut, she had known for months, for years, that something was terribly wrong. But Seraphina had always been so good at hiding it, so good at making excuses, at smoothing things over, at painting a picture of a perfect life that Elara knew was a lie. Seraphina. Who did this to you? Her sister did not answer. She just cried. She crumpled onto the beige couch, folding in on herself like she was trying to disappear. Deep, horrible, racking sobs tore through her body, a sound of such profound pain that it physically hurt Elara to hear it. Elara stood frozen for a moment, the sight of her twin sister broken on her couch, sending her mind reeling back, the present horror forcing the past into sharp, painful focus. This was not something that had happened overnight. Nothing this terrible ever does. Elara and Seraphina were 28 years old, identical in every way, born 7 minutes apart. Elara, the older one by those 7 minutes, never let her forget it. It was her right, Shed always joked, as the designated protector. Growing up, they were an inseparable unit. People could not tell them apart. Even their Aunt Clara, the woman who had lovingly, if not a bit frantically, raised them after their parents died in a horrific, fiery car crash, when they were just 12, would sometimes mix up their names. But beneath the identical surface, the identical long brown hair, the identical hazel eyes, they were night and day. Elara was the loud one, the fighter, the one who spoke her mind. Consequences be damned. She was the girl who had earned a week of detention for punching Tommy Richards in the jaw in the 8th grade hallway after he pulled Seraphina's hair and called her a name. Elara had not even hesitated. Seraphina had cried, horrified by the violence. Elara had just been angry she had not hit him harder. Seraphina was softer. She was kinder, almost to a fault. She was the one who saw the good in absolutely everyone, who believed that people could change, who wanted to help and to fix and to heal. She rescued spiders from the bathtub and cried during commercials. It was no surprise, then, that Elara had channeled her protective energy into becoming a kickboxing instructor, teaching other women how to defend themselves, how to find their own strength. And it was no surprise that Seraphina, with her gentle soul, became a beloved kindergarten teacher, a job she adored with every fiber of her being. It was perfect. Each of them doing exactly what suited their personalities. Then, 4 years ago, Seraphina met Marcus. She had met him at some high-dollar charity event her school was hosting. Marcus Morrison. The name alone had sounded expensive. He was 32, wildly successful, and came from a family with old, powerful money. He was a real estate developer, the kind of man who wore $3,000 suits and had a smile that looked like it was professionally polished and whitened every morning. He had donated a huge, headline-grabbing sum of money to the school that night and, charmed by the sweet, beautiful teacher, asked Seraphina out on a date the very same day. Seraphina had been ecstatic, floating on a cloud of a kind Elara had never seen. Elara met him on their 3rd date. Seraphina, glowing with a new, dazzling happiness, had brought him to a family dinner at Aunt Clara's house. Elara knew, instantly, that something was wrong. It was a feeling in her gut, a cold, heavy stone of distrust. She could not put her finger on it, not exactly. On the surface, Marcus was perfect. He said all the right things. He complimented Aunt Clara's honestly, very average cooking as if it were gourmet. He asked Elara about her gym, with a focused, feigned interest that almost fooled her. He laughed at the right times. He was handsome, charming, and polished. But there was something in his eyes. It was the way he looked at Seraphina when she was not looking. When she was in the kitchen helping Aunt Clara, his eyes followed her. But it was not love. It was not even affection. It was something else, something cold. Possessive. It was the look of a man who had just acquired a beautiful, expensive, prize-winning object, not a person he loved. He would smile at her, but the smile never, ever reached his cold, calculating eyes. Elara, never one to keep her opinions to herself, especially when it came to protecting her sister, told Seraphina about her concerns the very next day. She had tried to be gentle. Seraphina, Shed started, his great and all, but I just get a weird feeling. He just seems a little intense. It was a mistake. A huge mistake. Seraphina, who had never raised her voice to Elara in their entire lives, became instantly, fiercely defensive. A weird feeling. Elara, that's what you always say. You're just being overprotective. You don't like seeing me happy with someone. That's not true, Sarah. No, it is true, Seraphina had snapped, her eyes flashing with a hurt that wounded Elara. You're jealous that I finally found someone amazing. You always have to be the protector, Elara, but I don't need protecting, not from Marcus. They fought. They truly, horribly, fought, for the first time. The argument felt like a physical wound, and it opened a painful, jagged rift between them. Seraphina stopped calling as much after that. She was always busy with Marcus. 10 months later, she married him in a lavish, expensive, and rushed wedding that felt, to Elara, like a funeral. The wedding was 10 months later. 10 months of Seraphina pulling away, 10 months of her voice on the phone, sounding a little thinner, a little more distant. Marcus, she'd explained, wanted a quick engagement. When you know, she'd parroted, her voice sounding like she was trying to convince herself. The wedding was beautiful. It was offensively expensive. It was held at a massive, historical estate that Marcus's family probably owned, and it felt utterly, profoundly wrong to Elara. She had stood right next to her sister as the maid of honor. She watched Seraphina, looking like a fragile, beautiful doll in a dress that cost more than Elara's car, say I do to a man who had somehow, in less than a year, convinced her that his love was more important than her own family. Elara had smiled for the pictures, her face aching from the fakery. It had not felt like a wedding. It felt like she was watching her sister be buried. Almost immediately after the honeymoon, the isolation began. It was systematic. It was chilling. The first thing to go was Seraphina's job. Marcus, in his polished, charming way, had convinced her to quit. "My wife shouldn't have to work," Elara could just hear him saying. "I want to take care of you. You can relax. You can focus on the house." And Seraphina, who had loved her job, who had lived for those kids, had agreed. Shed called Elara to tell her, her voice sounding bright and false. "Isn't it wonderful, Elara? I won't have to worry about anything ever again." Elara had felt a true, physical chill of fear. Worrying about things, Elara knew, was what kept you sharp. After the job, he went for the family, their weekly sister lunches, a tradition they had held sacred since they were teenagers, stopped happening. First, there were plausible excuses. "Oh, Marcus has a work event I need to help him prepare for." Then they became flimsier. "We're having the house renovated, it's just chaos." Finally, they were just sad. "I'm just not feeling well, Elara. I'm just very tired." The phone calls became shorter, more stilted. Elara could feel his presence on the other end of the line. She could hear the way Seraphina's voice would tense up, become more formal, and she knew he was in the room, listening. The warning signs had been accumulating, each one a small, red flag that, when stitched together, created a banner of pure terror. Elara remembered seeing Seraphina at a family barbecue at Aunt Clara's 4 months ago. It was July. It was 95 degrees and humid. Seraphina, a woman who lived in sundresses and tank tops, had shown up wearing a long-sleeved, high-necked blouse and jeans. She'd laughed it off when Elara asked, "Oh, I'm just trying a new style." "More sophisticated," Marcus says. Later, when Seraphina had reached for a glass of lemonade, Elara had seen her wince, a tiny, almost imperceptible spasm of pain. And then there was the flinching. Seraphina, who was once so vibrant and tactile, who was the first to offer a hug, now seemed to shrink in on herself. Elara had moved too quickly, gesturing with her hands while telling a story, and Seraphina had flinched. She had physically recoiled, her eyes wide with a fear that was gone a second later, replaced by that same, brittle smile. 6 months ago, Elara, consumed by a worry so deep it was eating her alive, had driven to the suburban mansion unannounced. She had not called. She had not texted. She had just shown up. Marcus had answered the door. He had been dressed in a crisp polo shirt and slacks, looking like he'd just stepped out of a magazine. He had blocked the doorway with his body. "Elara." What a surprise. His smile was perfect. It did not reach his eyes. His eyes were like chips of ice. "Hi Marcus. Is Sarah around?" "I was in the neighborhood. Thought he'd stop by." "She's sleeping, Elara." He glanced at his expensive watch. It was 2 in the afternoon. "She's been under the weather. Maybe you should call first next time." He had not moved. He had not offered to let her in. The message was clear. "You are not welcome here." Elara had driven away, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. She had felt utterly, completely helpless. Now, back in the present, that helplessness was gone, replaced by a scalding, clarifying rage. She watched her sister's shoulders shake on the couch. Elara moved. She went to her kitchen, grabbed a clean kitchen towel, and filled it with ice from the freezer. She ran another cloth under cool water. She walked back and sat on the coffee table, directly in front of Seraphina. "Talk to me," Elara said again. Her voice was quiet now, but steady. She gently took the wet cloth and began to wipe at the dried blood on Seraphina's lip. Her sister flinched, then relaxed. "Tell me everything." And it happened. The words came out in broken, agonizing pieces. It was a dam of 2 years of pain bursting all at once. It tumbled out between the sobs and the long, gasping silences. It had started just as Elara had suspected. Small things. Criticism. Marcus criticizing her clothes. "That dress makes you look cheap." Criticizing her cooking. "Is my dinner supposed to be this burnt? Or is this a new recipe?" Criticizing her friends, her family. "Your sister is a bad influence. She's too loud, too aggressive. She's jealous of us." Then came the yelling, the rules, the control. He had demanded her phone passwords. He went through her messages, her call logs, her emails. He installed a tracking app on her phone for her safety. He tracked her car. He gave her an allowance, even though her name was on the joint bank accounts. She had to ask permission to spend money, even grocery money. She had to show him receipts. Elara's hands clenched the ice pack. She felt sick. Then, Seraphina's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper. She told Elara about the physical abuse. The first time, he had grabbed her arm during an argument. Had been angry Shed overcooked his steak. Had grabbed her so hard, his fingerprints were a near-perfect match to the ones on her neck now. He had apologized after, cried, begged her forgiveness, blamed his stress at work. Had bought her a diamond bracelet the next day. Then it was a push, sending her stumbling into a wall. Then a slap. Always, it was followed by apologies, by expensive gifts, by promises it would never, ever happen again. And always, it was her fault. Shed provoked him. Shed said the wrong thing. Shed been disrespectful. Tonight had been the worst. Marcus had come home late, hours after he said he would. He had not called. The dinner she had spent 2 hours preparing was cold. He had flown into a rage. He had grabbed her, shaken her, screaming in her face. And then his hands had found her throat. And he had squeezed. Seraphina looked at Elara, her one good eye wide and swimming with a terror so profound it stole Elara's breath. I saw darkness, Elara, she whispered. It was closing in. I thought, this is it. This is how I die. In my kitchen, because his dinner was cold. He had let go, just before she passed out. He had thrown her against the wall, and he had looked at her, crumpled on the floor, and told her, if you ever try to leave me, I will make sure no one ever finds your body. I have connections. I have money. Who do you think they'll believe? Me or you? Elara believed her. Seraphina finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, curled up on the couch under every blanket Elara owned. Elara had cleaned her wounds as gently as she could, given her pain medication, and made her a cup of tea she had barely touched. Now she was still, her breathing finally evening out, though it was still punctuated by small, hitching sobs in her sleep. Elara went to her kitchen and stood in the dark, staring at the Chicago skyline, not seeing it. Sleep was not happening for her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those bruises, those fingerprints. She kept thinking about how close she had come to losing her. How if Marcus had squeezed for just 10 seconds longer, just a little harder, her sister would be dead. The rage sitting in her chest was a living thing, something burning and acidic, demanding action. But what action? Her first instinct was to call the police. She picked up her phone, but she stopped. She knew. She knew exactly how this would play out. Seraphina had injuries, yes, but Marcus had a story. Marcus had a team of high-priced, shark-like lawyers on retainer. He would claim she fell. He would claim she was unstable, hysterical. He would claim she attacked him, and he was just defending himself. He would paint Seraphina as a gold digger, as mentally ill. His family's money and sterling reputation would crush Seraphina's word. The case would disappear into, she said, oblivion. And Seraphina would end up right back in that house, or worse, on the street with nothing, while Marcus, now provoked and angry, would be more dangerous than ever. Elara paced her small kitchen, her mind racing, running through possibilities and discarding them just as fast. She felt trapped. Helpless. The same way Shed felt outside his front door. She needed to destroy him, not just file a report. She needed to get her sister free, permanently, and ensure he could never, ever hurt her or anyone else again. She stopped pacing, leaning heavily on the counter, staring into the darkness. She caught her own reflection in the black, mirrored glass of the microwave door. She saw her face, hazel eyes, straight nose. A face she had seen every day of her life. And she saw Seraphina's face. Their identical face. The idea hit her like a bolt of lightning. It was insane. It was terrifying. It was impossibly dangerous. And it was perfect. When Seraphina woke up, the morning light was streaming into Elara's apartment. The harsh, unforgiving light of day was crueler than the midnight shadows. It revealed the full, horrific extent of the bruising. The purple around her eye had deepened, and the swelling had traveled down her cheek. Her lip was a raw, angry red. Elara, who had not slept, who had spent the hours sitting in her kitchen chair, feeling the rage solidify into a cold, hard purpose, simply looked at her. She made coffee, her movements precise and deliberate. She brought 2 mugs to the living room and sat on the coffee table, just as she had hours before. But this time, her sister was awake. Seraphina's one good eye followed her, filled with a haunted, exhausted fear. "I have a plan," Elara said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. It was the voice she used when she was about to spar with a difficult opponent. "The police," Seraphina whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "You're right. We have to call the police." "No." Elara shook her head. "Not the police, not yet. His lawyers will destroy you. Hell walk, and hell come after you, we both know that." "Then what, Elara? What can we do?" "Hide. I have to hide." "No," Elara said again, more firmly. She leaned in. "I'm going back." Seraphina's face, already pale, lost its last remaining trace of color. What do you mean? You can't come with me. Hell hurt you too." "No, Sarah." Elara looked directly into her sister's one open eye. "You don't understand. I'm going back. As you." The silence that followed was absolute. Seraphina just stared, her brain clearly unable to process the words. Then, a small, choked sound escaped her. It started as a laugh, a hysterical, terrified noise. No, Elara, you're crazy." "Absolutely not." She tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "You can't. You don't understand what he's like. He's not just violent, Elara. He's smart. He's a monster. He watches everything. Hell no. The second you walk in, hell no, you're not me. And he will kill you. He will kill you, and then he will find me." "He won't know," Elara countered, her voice sharp, cutting through Seraphina's panic. "We've fooled Aunt Clara our whole lives. We've fooled teachers, boyfriends, everyone. We can do this. This isn't a game, Elara. This isn't fooling a teacher." Seraphina was shaking her head, tears of fresh terror welling. "This is him, he notices. He notices everything. The way I walk, the way I talk, hell no." "Then you will teach me," Elara said, her voice unbending. "That's the point. I'm not you, Sarah. That's why it will work. I'm not afraid of him. I'm a fighter. This is what I do. I teach women how to fight monsters like him. You can't go to the police with just bruises. His lawyers will eat you alive. We need proof. We need irrefutable proof. We need to catch him in the act. I can get that proof. I can get his confessions on tape. I can get the evidence that will put him away for good. I can get inside his house, get to his computer, find his files. I can do what you can't." Elara took a breath, softening her tone. She took her sister's trembling hands. "And you," she said, her voice gentle now, "are going to disappear. You're going to Aunt Clara's. It's 2 hours away. He never goes there. He hates that side of the family, you know that. You'll be safe. You'll be hidden. You will be free of him. While I get the proof, we need to make sure you are free of him forever." Seraphina stared at her. The tears were still streaming, but the hysterical panic in her eyes was ebbing, replaced by a desperate, warring calculation. She was seeing the fighter in Elara, the protector who had punched Tommy Richards in the jaw. "You really think," Seraphina's voice was a whisper, "you really think you could fool him?" "I know I can. Trust me, Sarah. We have to do this. For you. For your life." Now, Elara squeezed her hands. "Teach me how to be you." The next 48 hours were the most intense, grueling training session of Elara's life. Seraphina, despite her pain and trauma, transformed. As she began to detail the rules of her prison, a cold, methodical anger entered her voice. She was no longer just a victim. She was a drill sergeant, teaching Elara how to survive in enemy territory. "His coffee," Seraphina started, her voice hollow. "It has to be ready at 6:30. Exactly. Not 6:29, not 6:31. He uses the Nespresso machine. Only the dark blue arpeggio pods. He says the other ones are swill. Okay, blue pods, 6:30. "No, you're not listening," Seraphina said, her voice sharp. "It's not just the coffee. It's the cream. 2 sugars, no more, no less. And the cream, this is the most important part. You have to heat the cream in the microwave for 20 seconds. Exactly. He says cold cream bruises the coffee. He threw a mug at my head once because it was only 15 seconds. It missed." Elara felt her jaw tighten, but she just nodded. 20 seconds. Got it. Dinner is at 6:30. Precisely. He'll text you what he wants. If he doesn't, you make chicken. Roasted, with vegetables. He hates exotic food. Simple, but it has to be perfect. Not too salty, not too dry. He once threw a plate against the wall because the asparagus was limp. He made me clean it up. The rules were endless. He doesn't let me have a password on my phone. He checks it. Every night, he goes through my texts, my calls, my browser history. You can't delete anything, Elara. Hell no, you're hiding something. He says secrets are a cancer in a marriage. He made me delete all my social media. He said it was unbecoming for his wife to parade herself online. Seraphina, her hand shaking, drew a detailed layout of the house on a piece of paper. This is his office. Never go in there, ever. The door is always locked, but even if it wasn't, you don't go in. That is his space, the security system. He controls it from his phone. He knows when every door and window is opened. He gets alerts. She paused, her breath hitching. And Elara, the cameras, they're all outside, of course. But I'm sure, there's one in the living room. Hidden. In the bookshelf, maybe. He's always watching. Hell comment on things. Hell say, why were you pacing so much today? Did you have a stressful day? He's always watching. Elara stored this information, her mind cold and sharp. This was not a husband, this was a warden. The second day, they worked on the physical transformation. This was the hardest part for Elara. No, Elara, stop, Seraphina said, wincing as she stood up to demonstrate. You're walking too fast. Your shoulders are back. You take up too much space. What are you talking about? You walk like you own the world. She trailed off, her body folding in on itself. I don't. You have to be smaller. Elara had to practice walking with her shoulders hunched slightly, her steps quiet, her movements hesitant, as if she were a guest, perpetually afraid of breaking something. And your eyes, Seraphina coached, her voice pained. You're looking at me. You're meeting my gaze. I don't do that anymore. Not with him. I look at the floor. I look at his chin. Never his eyes. He says it's disrespectful and challenging when I look at him directly. Elara, who had won staring contests her entire life, had to practice lowering her gaze. It felt like a betrayal of her very soul. Then, the voice. Elara's voice was strong, clear, full of confidence. Seraphina's had become soft, hesitant, perpetually apologetic. I'm sorry. Yes, Marcus. Of course, Marcus. I'll do better. Elara practiced these phrases, the words tasting like ash in her mouth, until her throat hurt from the forced, breathy softness. Finally, there was the hair. Elara's long brown hair, identical to Seraphina's, was her one vanity. She always wore it in a tight, strong ponytail for work. Seraphina's hair was a shorter, severe, chin-length bob. It was lifeless. He made me cut it, Seraphina whispered, touching her own hair with a flicker of old resentment. About a year ago, he said my long hair was too much temptation for other men, that I was inviting them to look. Elara's stomach churned. She said nothing. She walked into the bathroom, grabbed a towel, and sat on the closed toilet lid. Do it. Elara, no, your hair. It's just hair, Sarah. Do it. It has to be perfect. Seraphina's hands shook, but she picked up the kitchen scissors. The sound of the blades, sharp and metallic, cutting through the thick ponytail was shockingly loud. Final. Elara watched in the mirror as her identity, the Elara the world knew, fell away in clumps. When it was done, she stared at her reflection. A stranger looked back at her, a softer, weaker, breakable version of herself. It was Seraphina. It was perfect. Now the makeup, Seraphina said, her voice all business. She pulled out a thick, heavy concealer and foundation, the kind used for stage performances. This is what I use. He doesn't like marks where people can see them, so I got good at this. She showed Elara how to layer it, to blend the angry purple and sickly yellow on her own face, transforming the evidence of violence into something that just looked like tired skin. Elara practiced on herself, covering the one small bruise on her jaw from a sparring match, until the technique was mastered. It was almost time. Seraphina slid her heavy, ostentatious diamond wedding ring from her finger. The skin beneath was pale and indented. "You have to wear this. He'll notice immediately if you don't." Elara slid the ring onto her own finger. It felt cold. It felt heavy. It felt like a shackle. "One last thing," Seraphina said. She retrieved a small, worn decorative box from the bottom of her purse. Inside was a thick wad of cash. "It's $3,000, she whispered, her voice thick with a strange mixture of shame and pride. "My escape money. I've been saving for 8 months. Taking $20 here, $50 there from the grocery money. He never checks the receipts that carefully. He just likes to know I have them. I was going to run. I never found the courage." Elara looked at the money, at the woman in front of her. "You found the courage to come to me," Elara said, her voice low. "That took everything. Now, let me finish this." The plan was set. Elara looked in the mirror. With the identical hair, the downcast eyes, and the heavy ring on her finger, she was no longer Elara. She was Seraphina. She was ready. The first step was securing Seraphina. Elara's mind was a fortress of cold, clear, tactical thought. She put Seraphina, wrapped in a blanket, and wearing Elara's own sunglasses to hide the worst of the swelling, into her car. She drove the 2 hours to Aunt Clara's house in a state of hypervigilant silence. Seraphina seemed to be in shock, staring out the window, her hands clutched in her lap. Aunt Clara, a woman whose entire life was a whirlwind of frantic love and strong opinions, opened the door. She took one look at Seraphina's bruised, swollen face, then at Elara's new, severe haircut. Her eyes, usually so bright and scattered, became laser-sharp. She did not ask questions, not yet. She just pulled Seraphina into her arms, a fierce, protective embrace, and whispered, "You're safe now, my girl. You're home." The relief on Seraphina's face was so profound, so complete, it almost broke Elara. "Keep her here. Don't let her leave. Don't let her call anyone," Elara commanded, her voice low. "No one. And if he calls, she's not here. You haven't seen her in months. Can you do that?" Aunt Clara looked at Elara, truly seeing the ice in her eyes, the set of her jaw. She nodded once. "Go," she said, "and you be careful. Whatever it is you're doing, you end it." Elara drove back to Chicago, but not to her own apartment. She went to Seraphina's car, which was still parked in Elara's guest spot. She transferred the small bag. She had packed a bag containing a fresh set of Seraphina's clothes, several high-capacity portable chargers, and 3 tiny, military-grade audio recorders she'd bought from a specialty store months ago for her self-defense classes. She also had the camera pen Seraphina had been too terrified to use. She sat in her sister's immaculately clean, oppressively new-smelling luxury sedan. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The face was Seraphina's. The hair was Seraphina's. The cold, heavy ring on her finger was Seraphina's. But the eyes were hers. They were cold, furious, and focused. She forced them to soften. She practiced the downcast look, the slight, nervous quiver of the lip. She took a deep breath, and the warrior, the kickboxing instructor, the fighter, disappeared. In her place sat Seraphina Morrison, a broken, terrified, submissive wife. She started the car. The drive to the suburbs was a 30-mile journey into enemy territory, each mile closer to the sprawling, gated community. Her heart pounded a heavier, colder beat. It was not fear. It was adrenaline. It was the ice-cold rage settling into her muscles, preparing her for a fight. She was a soldier going behind enemy lines. She pulled up to the house. It was not a house. It was a statement. A 3-story, sterile, gray stone monolith that looked more like a modern art museum than a home. It was architecturally beautiful and utterly, completely cold. It loomed over the perfectly manicured lawn, a lawn so green it looked fake. And in the driveway, parked neatly in front of the 3-car garage, was Marcus's black Mercedes. Elara's heart did not stop. It slammed against her ribs. He was home. It was 3 in the afternoon. Seraphina had said he never came home before 7. He's home. He's home early. This was not part of the plan. Her mind raced. Had he come home and found her gone? Was he already suspicious? Was he waiting for her? The cold rage solidified into something harder, sharper. Good. Let him be home. Let's get this started. She forced her hands to stop gripping the steering wheel. She unclenched her jaw. She remembered her training. Be smaller. Be afraid. Be Seraphina. Elara got out of the car. She forced her shoulders to slump. She grabbed Seraphina's purse, a designer bag that cost more than Elara's rent, but which felt as empty and lifeless as the house itself. She kept her eyes down as she walked to the massive front door. She did not have a key. Seraphina had told her, "I don't have a key. He says keys are for guests. My fingerprint opens the door. But only when he's not home. When he's home, I have to ring the bell. I have to wait for him to let me in." Elara's stomach turned. Wait for him to let me in. She raised a trembling hand. This part wasn't hard to fake, and pressed the doorbell. A few seconds later, the massive, imposing door swung open. And there he was. Marcus. Elara finally got her first real look at the man who had been torturing her sister. He was tall, just over 6 feet. He was well-built, with the broad shoulders and lean, hard body of a man who spent time at a very expensive gym. His dark hair was styled perfectly, not a single strand out of place. He was wearing an expensive, button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing a ridiculously expensive watch. He was, in a purely objective sense, incredibly handsome. He looked like the cover of a business magazine. But his eyes. Elara met them for a fraction of a second before she remembered to drop her gaze. His eyes were cold, not just cold, they were empty. They were the color of a winter sky, pale blue and utterly devoid of warmth or light. They were the eyes of a shark. "You're home," he said. It was not a question, it was a statement. An accusation. His voice was deep, smooth, and laced with an edge of irritation. Elara forced herself to flinch, just as Seraphina would have. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice breathy and apologetic. She looked at the floor. You're home early. "And you're home late," he countered, his voice unmoving. He did not move to let her in. He just stood there, blocking the doorway, forcing her to stand on the welcome mat like a solicitor. "Where were you?" Elara's mind flashed to the alibi. Seraphina had gone shopping yesterday morning, before coming to her apartment. The groceries were still in Elara's fridge, but Marcus wouldn't know that. I just went to the grocery store," she stammered, just as Seraphina had coached. "Getting things. For dinner." She held up the purse as if it was proof. Marcus stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. Elara could feel his gaze on her, a physical, dissecting thing. He was scanning her, the new haircut, the way she was standing. She could feel him searching for any sign of deception, any crack in the facade. She forced her body to tremble. She let a tear well in her eye, a genuine one, born of pure, unadulterated rage. Finally, he stepped aside. "Fine," he said, his voice clipped. "Get in. You left your phone at home again. I've been trying to call you. How many times have I told you not to do that? How am I supposed to know you're safe if you don't have your phone?" The lie was so smooth, so practiced. "How am I supposed to know you're safe?" Elara knew it meant, "How am I supposed to track you?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. It was the phrase Seraphina said 1,000 times a day. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I forgot it. I was in a hurry. I'm sorry." "Go make my coffee," he said, turning his back on her and walking away toward his office. "Blue pod, 20 seconds on the cream. I have calls. Dinner at 6:30. Don't be late this time." Elara let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Her entire body was vibrating. First test passed. She moved through the house. It was freezing. Not in temperature, but in feeling. Everything was perfect. Cream-colored walls, expensive, uncomfortable-looking furniture, and fresh flowers on the entryway table that looked too perfect to be real. There was no warmth, no personality, no life. This was not a home. It was a showroom. A prison. She set her purse down carefully, where Seraphina said it belonged. On the small bench by the door, not the console table. Rules. Everything was rules. She made his coffee, her hands moving with mechanical precision. She found the Nespresso machine. She found the blue pods. She poured the cream into a small ceramic pitcher, put it in the microwave, and stared at the numbers as they counted down. 20. 19. 18. She hit stop at exactly 20, her heart pounding. She brought the coffee to his office. The door was closed. She knocked softly. "Come in." She opened the door. His office was the size of her entire apartment. Dark wood, floor to identify bookshelves, a massive desk. He was on his headset, laughing about something. He did not look at her. He just pointed to a spot on his desk. She set the coffee down, her eyes on the floor, and backed out of the room, closing the door softly. She spent the next 3 hours in a state of quiet, terrifying exploration. She moved through the house, a ghost in her own sister's life. The living room was a sea of white and beige, a glass coffee table without a single fingerprint. Everything was positioned at right angles. In the kitchen, the counters were completely clear, not a dish out of place. Not a single appliance visible. Seraphina had told her Marcus hated clutter. This was not clutter. This was life. He hated life. She found the master bedroom, and her blood ran cold. The closet told her everything she needed to know about the marriage. It was a massive walk-in, but it was not shared. Marcus' clothes took up 3/4 of the space, rows upon rows of expensive suits, still in their dry cleaning plastic. Dozens of shirts, a wall of shoes. It was a department store. Seraphina's things were crammed into one small corner, a few simple dresses, some jeans. Basic, nondescript clothes. It was the closet of a guest, an afterthought. The bathroom was the same. His colognes, his shaving supplies, his expensive facial products, all dominated the sprawling double vanity. Her makeup bag was tucked away in a drawer, out of sight. The afternoon crawled by. Elara, her nerves screaming, began to prepare dinner. Chicken, roasted vegetables, rice, simple, safe. She set the table exactly as Seraphina had shown her. Fork on the left, knife and spoon on the right. Water glass at the 1 o'clock position. Every movement felt watched, judged. She could feel the hidden camera in the living room, a malevolent, unseen eye. At 6:25, she heard his office door open. Her stomach twisted into a knot. He walked into the dining room at exactly 6:30. He did not look at her, he looked at the table. He sat down. Elara quickly put the food on his plate, her hands shaking. She served herself a small portion. She sat. He took a bite of the chicken. He chewed slowly, deliberately, his cold eyes on his plate. Elara's heart was a drum against her ribs. "It's bland," he said, his voice casual. "I'm sorry," Elara whispered, her gaze on her own plate. I can add more seasoning." "Don't bother," he said. He took another bite. "It's also dry. You always overcook the chicken." "I'm sorry, Marcus. I'll do better. I promise." He ate in silence for several minutes. Elara barely touched her food. Her appetite was gone, replaced by a nauseating wave of adrenaline and disgust. Every nerve in her body was screaming that she was in danger, that she was sitting across from a predator. Then, he set down his fork. He leaned back in his chair, his cold, blue eyes finally lifting to look at her. He studied her. "You're moving differently today," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Your posture, it's different." Elara felt her blood turn to ice water. I don't know what you mean," she whispered, forcing a tremble into her voice. "You seem tense," he said, his head tilting, like a scientist studying a specimen. "Nervous, more than usual." He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Something you want to tell me, Seraphina." Elara's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. Her blood, which had been ice, suddenly felt like fire. He had noticed. The monster, the warden, the obsessive micromanager of her sister's life, had noticed a change in her posture. She fought down a surge of pure, violent impulse. The impulse to stand up, flip the table, and show him exactly what her posture was capable of. Instead, she did what Seraphina had trained her to do. She made herself smaller. She flinched, as if his quiet words were a physical blow. She let her shoulders, which she had been unconsciously holding straight, slump forward. She dropped her gaze from his chin to her own lap, as if she were ashamed. A tear, this one born of pure, white-hot fury, welled in her eye and dripped onto her hand. She let it. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. This was not a performance. The rage was making her shake, but she knew he would interpret it as fear. He would relish it as fear. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I didn't mean to overcook the chicken. I'm just tired today. And, you coming home early, it startled me. I wasn't prepared. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She delivered the string of apologies, the litany of self-blame that Seraphina had lived on. She watched him from under her lashes. She saw his posture change. He had been leaning forward, a predator scenting weakness. Now, he leaned back, the tension leaving his shoulders. He had won. He had re-established control. His quiet accusation had produced tears and apologies. The world was back on its axis. He let out a small, almost imperceptible sigh of satisfaction. "Tired," he repeated, his voice laced with contempt. "You're always tired. What do you even do all day in this house to be tired? Nothing. You do nothing." He picked up his fork again, his interest in the confrontation over, his point having been made. "Clean this up. I have work to do. And don't be tense tomorrow. It's annoying." "Yes, Marcus. I'm sorry, Marcus." He left the room, leaving his half-eaten, bland, and dry dinner on the table. Elara sat there for a long moment, her body vibrating with an adrenaline she could not expend. She wanted to scream, she wanted to break the plate against the wall, just as he had. Instead, she stood up, her movements quiet and submissive. She collected his plate, she cleaned the kitchen. She scrubbed the counters until they gleamed. She moved through the house, her body on autopilot, while her mind was a cold, raging engine of calculation. She had passed the test, but she knew, with chilling certainty, that it was only the first one. Later that night, the house was submerged in a heavy, oppressive silence. Elara had cleaned up the dinner, and Marcus had remained in his office. Around 9, he had come out, turned on the television in the cavernous, cold living room, and watched a news program, his face illuminated by the flickering blue light. Elara had sat on the opposite end of the white, uncomfortable couch, keeping herself small, pretending to read a magazine she could not focus on. Every second was a performance, every breath was calculated. At 10, he turned off the television. "I'm going to bed," he announced, not looking at her. "Don't stay up too late. It makes you sloppy in the morning." "Yes, Marcus. Good night." He went upstairs. Elara waited, her entire body clenched, until she heard the definitive click of the master bedroom door closing. She let herself breathe. The sheer, mental exhaustion of being Seraphina was a heavier burden than any workout she had ever endured. It was a weight that crushed the soul. She sat in the dark living room, her mind racing. She needed evidence, hard evidence. What she had so far was just her word. She needed more. Her phone, Seraphina's phone, buzzed in her pocket. Her heart leaped into her throat. She pulled it out. It was a text, a prearranged signal. It was from a number she didn't recognize, which meant it was Aunt Clara, using a burner phone as they had planned. The message was simple, innocuous. "Thinking of you, sweetie. Hope you're feeling well. Love, Auntie." A test. A simple, safe message. She was just about to type back a simple "love you too" when a shadow fell over her. He was standing on the bottom stair, silent as a ghost. He had not gone to bed. He had waited. "Who are you texting, Seraphina?" His voice was not loud. It was deadly quiet. Elara's blood turned to ice. She fumbled with the phone, her performance of fear suddenly becoming terrifyingly real. No one. Just Aunt Clara. She was just checking in. He moved faster than she would have believed. In 2 strides, he was across the room, his hand shot out and clamped around her wrist. It was not a grab, it was a vice. His fingers, strong and unforgiving, dug into the bones, sending a sharp, electric pain up her arm. He yanked her toward him, pulling her off the couch. "Let me see," he commanded. "Marcus, you're hurting me." She gasped, the words torn from her. "I told you," he snarled, his handsome face transforming into something ugly, something truly monstrous. His face was inches from hers. She could smell the expensive, subtle scent of his cologne. "I told you to limit contact with your family. I told you they are a cancer. They try to turn you against me, and you disobey me, in my own house." Elara's training, her years of kickboxing, screamed at her, "Break the grip, palm heel to the nose, knee to the groin, elbow to the temple. Take him down." Her body tensed, her muscles coiled, ready to strike. But she could not. She was not Elara. She was Seraphina. She forced her coiled muscles to go limp. She forced the killing rage out of her eyes and replaced it with the tears of terror that were now, finally, genuine. She was not afraid of him. She was afraid of what he was doing to her sister. She was afraid of what this monster was. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, letting her body go weak, forcing him to take her full weight. "I'm sorry." She just sent a message. I didn't even respond. I promise. "I'm sorry, Marcus, please, you're hurting me. Please." He stared at her, his eyes cold, searching her face for any sign of defiance. He saw only the broken, terrified woman he had created. His grip tightened for one more agonizing second, a final assertion of dominance, before he shoved her arm away from him. "You think you're clever," he whispered, his voice a venomous hiss. "But I know everything that happens in this house. I know every lie you tell before you even think of it. You belong to me. This house, this life, your phone, your time, all of it belongs to me. Do you understand that?" "Yes," she choked out, cradling her wrist. "Yes, I understand. I'm sorry. Don't let it happen again." He looked at her, crumpled on the couch, and a small, satisfied smile touched the corner of his mouth. He had won. "Again. Go to sleep. In the guest room. I don't want to look at you right now." He turned and walked up the stairs. This time, she heard the bedroom door close and lock. Elara stayed on the couch for a full 10 minutes, her body shaking with a rage so profound it made her sick. Her wrist was already beginning to swell, and she knew, with a sickening certainty, that his fingerprints would be there in the morning. A matching set to the ones on her sister's throat. She went to the guest room. She did not sleep. She sat in the dark, and she planned. He had made a mistake. He had shown her his true face, and he had confirmed he was watching. But he had also shown her his arrogance. He believed she was Seraphina. He believed she was broken. And that, Elara thought, her rage cooling back into ice, was the weapon she would use to destroy him. The next week was a living hell. It was a masterclass in psychological torture. Elara now understood what Seraphina had meant. Marcus didn't just control her life. He orchestrated it. Every single second. But Elara was not Seraphina. She was a soldier, and she was now at war. She used the tools Seraphina had left her. The small camera pen, the tiny audio recorders. Every morning, she would take one of the recorders, fully charged, and slip it into the pocket of her jeans, or the waistband of her yoga pants. And she recorded everything. She recorded him on day 3, his voice dripping with contempt as he berated her for 10 full minutes because the grocery bill was $12 higher than last week. "What are you buying, Seraphina? Steak, caviar. Are you just throwing my money away? Tell me. I want to know what costs $12. She recorded him on day 4, his voice a low, threatening growl when she took too long in the shower. "What are you doing in there? Wasting my water, wasting my time. Get out here, now." She recorded his phone calls. Not the calls themselves, but his side of them, the charming, professional voice he used with his colleagues, and the cold, dismissive, cruel tone he used when he spoke to his assistant, or his mother. She documented it all. Every night, after he was asleep, she would go to the guest bathroom, lock the door, turn on the fan, and transfer the audio files to a tiny, encrypted USB drive she kept hidden in a tampon. But she knew it was not enough. The recordings were damning. They showed he was a controlling, abusive, narcissistic monster. But his lawyers would argue it was verbal disagreement. They would say he was high-strung. She needed the ace. She needed the evidence of the crimes she knew he was committing. Stalking. Illegal surveillance. She got her chance on day 6. Marcus, in a surprisingly good mood which Elara now knew was just the prelude to a storm, announced he was going golfing. A boy's day, Head called it. He would be gone for at least 6 hours. The moment his Mercedes pulled out of the driveway, Elara moved. She went to his office first. Locked. Just as Seraphina had said, she looked at the high-tech, expensive lock. A fingerprint scanner. She was not getting in there. She stood in the hallway, her mind racing. Where would a man like Marcus keep his secrets? Not in his office, necessarily. That was for show. That was for his public-facing success. He would keep his personal secrets, his weapons, somewhere closer. Somewhere he could access them. The bedroom. She ran to the master bedroom. She went to his nightstand. The top drawers were just normal, a charger, a book, a bottle of sleeping pills. Then she checked the bottom drawer. It was locked. A simple, old-fashioned key lock. Her heart leaped. This was it. She spent the next 20 minutes tearing his side of the room apart, her movements frantic but methodical. She looked under the mattress. In his shoe boxes. In his suit pockets. Nothing. She stood in the middle of the room, forcing herself to think. Where would a controlling, arrogant man hide a key? Not somewhere difficult, somewhere he thought was clever. Somewhere close. She knelt by the nightstand. She ran her hands underneath the heavy wood. Nothing. She pulled the entire nightstand away from the wall. And there, taped to the back of the solid, heavy piece of furniture, was a single, small, silver key. Amateur. He thought he was so clever. Her hands shook as she unlocked the drawer. She pulled it open. It was not full of random items. It was just one thing. A single, thick, manila folder. With her sister's name on it. Seraphina. Elara felt her breath catch. She opened it. It was worse than she could have ever imagined. It was not just a folder. It was a file. A case file. Like a prosecutor would build against a criminal. The first thing she saw was a stack of printouts from a GPS tracking service. It was a log of her sister's car. Everywhere she had gone for the last year. The grocery store, the park, the one time she had met Elara for that tense, short coffee. He had logged it. Met with sister, 2:15 p.m. 3:05 p.m., 50 minutes. Elara felt bile rise in her throat. Under that was a stack of screenshots, text messages, messages between Seraphina and Elara, between Seraphina and Aunt Clara, between Seraphina and an old college friend. He had somehow, through spyware, mirrored her entire phone. He had everything. And next to each screenshot, he had made notes. In his neat, precise, angry handwriting. Lying. Said she was at the store, but text shows she was talking to Elara. Ungrateful. Complaining about me to her aunt. Under that, bank statements. Highlighting every purchase, every $20 withdrawal. And next to them, a handwritten question mark. He knew, had known about the escape money. But the last thing in the folder was the thing that made Elara's blood run truly, absolutely cold. It was a letter. Typed on his official letterhead. It was addressed to the principal of the school where Seraphina used to work. It was a draft. Never sent. But it was ready. It was a letter of concern from a loving, worried husband. In it, Marcus had fabricated a detailed, chilling, and believable story. He wrote about Seraphina's growing mental instability, her bouts of paranoia, her erratic behavior. He worried she was a potential danger to the children she loved so much. He was sharing this only out of the deepest concern for her health, and for the safety of the school. It was a bomb. It was a weapon designed to destroy her. To ruin her reputation, her career, her credibility. With this letter, he could ensure that if she ever left, no one would ever believe her. She would be the crazy, unstable wife. He would be the poor, long-suffering husband. Elara's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the paper. This was it. This was the ace. This was not just abuse. This was calculated, premeditated, and utterly evil. She pulled out the camera pen. She laid every single document out on the bed, in the bright sunlight. And she photographed everything. Every page, every screenshot, every handwritten note, every line of that monstrous letter. She put everything back. Exactly as she had found it. She locked the drawer. She taped the key to the back of the nightstand. She pushed it back against the wall. She had the evidence. Now, she needed a way to use it. She remembered Seraphina, mentioning an advocate, someone she had called once, months ago, but had been too scared to meet. Elara had found the advocate's business card, Helen Royce, tucked into an old purse. Elara went to her sister's hidden box. She took $200 of the escape money. She left the house, got in Seraphina's car, and drove to a convenience store 10 miles away. She bought a burner phone. She called the number on the card. Helen Royce speaking. My name is Seraphina Morrison, Elara said, forcing the terrified, broken, Seraphina voice. I think my husband is trying to kill me, and I think I have proof. They arranged to meet, an hour later, at a coffee shop 3 towns over. Elara told Marcus, via text, that she was at a different, farther away grocery store, one that Seraphina had told her he approved of. She sat in a back booth, and Helen Royce, a sharp, kind-eyed woman in her 50s, listened. Elara did not tell her the truth, not the whole truth. She did not tell her she was a twin. She just showed her the photographs on the camera pen. She played her one of the audio files, the one of him screaming about the $12. Helen's face grew grimmer with every piece of evidence. "This is," she said, her voice low. "This is horrifying. And it is very, very good evidence. The stalking, the financial abuse, the letter, that letter is terroristic threatening, it's blackmail." "Is it enough?" Elara whispered, playing her role. "Is it enough to make him stop?" Helen looked at her, her eyes full of a sad, professional anger. "It's enough to get a restraining order, absolutely. We can take this to the police. The DA will look at this very seriously. But, Seraphina, a man like this, with his money, his lawyers, they will fight. They will say this is coercion. They will say you stole it. They will say you are the unstable one, just like he planned. It will be a war. A long, ugly, public war. We have a very strong case. But, it's not ironclad." "What?" Elara asked, her voice hollow. "What is ironclad?" Helen sighed. She leaned in, her voice dropping. "A confession. A direct, explicit confession. Him, on tape, admitting to the physical violence, admitting to the choking, admitting to the threats. Something his money cannot explain away. Something that shows, without a shadow of a doubt, who he is." Elara nodded, her mind a cold, spinning vortex. "A confession." "But Seraphina," Helen said, putting a hand on Elara's, do not, under any circumstances, try to get that yourself. It is too dangerous. He could kill you. You come with me. Right now, we go to a shelter. We file the report. We start the war today. With what you have." Elara looked at the kind woman. I need to think," she whispered. I need a day. To get my things. My passport. I can't just run. Not yet." Helen looked reluctant, but she nodded, pressing her card into Elara's hand. 24 hours. Then you call me. Or him, calling the police to his house for a wellness check. Do you understand me? You are not alone in this anymore." Elara drove back to the sterile, cold, perfect house. She put the burner phone in the tampon box. She put the groceries away. She felt a new, terrifying, and final calm settle over her. Helen was right. His lawyers would fight the evidence she had. She needed something more. She needed something undeniable. She needed him to confess. And as she stood in the silent, empty kitchen, she knew, with absolute certainty, how she was going to get it. It was time to end this. The seventh day dawned with a heavy, oppressive stillness. The air in the house felt thick, charged with an unspoken, violent energy. Marcus's good mood from the day before had evaporated. He had come home late last night, long after Elara had returned from her meeting with Helen. She had heard him stumble in, smelling of whiskey. He had not come to the guest room. He had gone straight to the master bedroom and slammed the door. Elara had not slept. She had spent the night in the cold guest room, solidifying her plan. Helen's words echoed in her mind. A confession, something ironclad. Today, she would get it. She was no longer just a spy. She was a hunter. And this was the day she would set her trap. Her morning was a ritual of preparation. She confirmed the audio recorder in her pocket was fully charged, its tiny microphone unobstructed. Then she took the burner phone she had bought, the one Marcus knew nothing about. She went to the living room, her movements calm and deliberate. The vast, sterile room had a large, built-in bookshelf, dark wood filled with unread, leather-bound books. It was a prop, just like everything else in his life. And it was the perfect stage. She found a gap between a set of Charles Dickens and an encyclopedia. She propped the burner phone up, aiming its camera directly at the center of the room at the white couch and the glass coffee table. She hit record. The video file would be massive, but the battery was full. It would last for hours. Then, she used Seraphina's phone, the one he monitored, to send a single, prearranged text to Aunt Clara's burner phone. "Thinking of you. I'm making roast chicken tonight." It was a signal. It meant, tonight, I'm initiating. Be ready. The day crawled by. Marcus stayed in his office, the door shut. Elara moved through the house, the ghost of Seraphina, her heart a cold, steady drum. She cleaned. She prepped the chicken. She was a coiled spring, every sense heightened, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. At 6:30, The dinner was ready. The house was quiet. Too quiet. At 6:45, he emerged. He was not dressed for dinner. He was still in the clothes he'd worn yesterday, his expensive shirt rumpled, his hair a mess. His eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled stale, a mixture of old alcohol and an acrid sweat. He had been drinking all day. He was looking for a fight. "This place is a mess," he slurred, his eyes scanning the immaculate living room. Elara was standing by the dining room, her Seraphina mask firmly in place. Dinner is ready, Marcus." "A mess," he repeated, ignoring her. He walked to the glass coffee table, where she had, hours ago, placed a single, approved of design magazine. He picked it up. "What is this doing here?" I was reading it," she whispered, her eyes on the floor. "Reading," he sneered. He picked up the magazine and, with a sudden, violent motion, threw it across the room. It smashed into a wall-mounted vase, sending water and flowers cascading to the floor. "While I'm working all day, paying for everything. Paying for this entire, perfect house. You just sit around, reading." "No, I just took a short break. I'm sorry." "You're always sorry," he spat. He was advancing on her now, his movements unsteady but menacing. "Sorry doesn't fix anything." This was it. The moment was here. Right on cue, Seraphina's phone, the one Elara held in her hand, the one Marcus knew about, buzzed. It was a single, sharp vibration. The signal, Aunt Clara, confirming she had received the message. Confirming the final part of the plan was in motion. Marcus' head, which had been foggy with alcohol, snapped toward the sound. His eyes, unfocused, a second before, became sharp, predatory. "Give me your phone," he commanded. "Marcus, it's probably just a spam alert. Give it to me. Now." She handed it over, her hand faking a tremble. He snatched it from her. He fumbled with the screen, his thumb mashing at it. He saw the message from Aunt Clara. "Can't wait to hear from you," a simple, prearranged reply, confirming Elara's earlier signal. But to Marcus, it was a betrayal. His face transformed. The drunken, unfocused anger vaporized, replaced by a pure, terrifying, cold rage. "Your sister," he whispered. "You've been talking to your sister. After everything I said. After I told you." "No, Marcus, I haven't," she just. He did not let her finish. His hand shot out, not to her, but to the phone. He raised it high and smashed it against the wall. The screen shattered, the case splintering. It clattered to the floor, dead. "I told you," he screamed, his voice cracking. "I told you, no contact. You're lying to me. You've been lying this whole time." He moved toward her, his hands raised. "Who are you really talking to? What are you planning?" "Nothing. I promise. Nothing." His hand came up. It was a blur. It connected with her face. A hard, vicious, open-palmed slap that snapped her head to the side. Pain exploded across her cheek. She tasted the sharp, metallic tang of blood in her mouth. Her ear was ringing. But something else happened. Something he had not, in his wildest nightmares, anticipated. The pain did not break her. It did not make her cry. It did not make her apologize. It was a clarifier. It was the final, burning ignition. The fog of Seraphina, the character she had been playing for 7 days, burned away in an instant, revealing the ice-cold diamond-hard rage of Elara beneath. She did not crumple. She did not cower. She slowly, deliberately, turned her head back to face him. Her eyes, which had been downcast and afraid for a solid week, lifted. They were not Seraphina's eyes. They were not soft. They were not afraid. They were cold. They were furious. And they were, with every fiber of her being, done. She let a small, cold smile touch her split lip. "Wrong twin," she whispered. Marcus' confusion lasted for exactly 1 second. The man was a monster, but he was not stupid. He saw the stranger in her eyes. He saw the lack of fear, and it enraged him more than the text message ever could. "You," he started, and his hand came up again, not to slap this time, but to grab. He lunged for her throat. But this time, Elara was ready. She was not Seraphina. She was Elara, and her training was not a memory. It was an instinct. His hand came at her. She did not retreat. She moved into him. She blocked his arm, her forearm connecting with his with a sharp crack. She trapped his wrist, her fingers finding the pressure points, a grip of steel. She used his own lurching, drunken momentum against him. In one single, fluid, devastating motion, she stepped into his space, hooked her leg behind his, and twisted. It was a perfect hip throw. Marcus, a man who weighed 200 pounds and stood over 6 feet tall, went airborne. His eyes went wide with shock and disbelief. He made a small, surprised sound. Then he crashed. His back and head hit the imported hardwood floor with a sound that shook the entire room. A sick, wet, heavy thud. The air exploded from his lungs in a pained gasp. Before he could recover, before he could even process what had happened, Elara was on him. She did not hesitate. She dropped down, her knee pressing hard into the center of his chest, pinning him to the floor. She had one of his arms trapped under her leg, the other she held pinned by the wrist, bent at an angle that had him whimpering. He was stronger. But she knew leverage. She knew technique. He was trapped. She looked down at the man who had terrorized her sister. His face was a mask of shock, pain, and dawning terror. "Say it," she commanded. Her voice was nothing like Seraphina's. It was the voice of a kickboxing instructor. It was loud. It was clear. It was lethal. It was aimed directly at her pocket, and at the bookshelf across the room. "Admit what you did to my sister," he thrashed, his face turning red. "Get off me. You're crazy. Get off." "Say it," she repeated, pressing her knee down harder, restricting his breath. "Admit what you did to Seraphina." I don't know what you're talking about." His eyes darted around, his calculating brain, even in its panic, trying to find a way out. "The folder, Marcus," she said, her voice dropping to a cold conversational tone. "The one in your nightstand. The GPS tracking data. The spyware on her phone. The letter you wrote to her principal. The one where you called her mentally unstable. The one I sent to my lawyer an hour ago." It's over. That was what broke him. Not the pain, not the pin. The evidence, the loss of control. His carefully constructed world was shattering. His arrogance, his one true God, was failing him. The narcissistic rage exploded, overriding all calculation. "She deserved it," he screamed, his voice a raw, ugly sound, his body bucking beneath her. "She's my wife. She's supposed to obey me, respect me. But she was always sneaking around, hiding money, planning to leave me. Ungrateful." "So you hit her," Elara said, her voice cold, a prosecutor finishing her case. "You choked her. You threatened to make her body disappear. Say it." "Yes," he roared, his face purple, his confession echoing in the sterile, perfect room. "Yes. She pushed me to it. If she'd just listened, if she'd just done what she was supposed to do. I gave her everything. This house, the money. And she repaid me by. The front door burst open. It did not just open. It was kicked in. The sound of the wood splitting was the most beautiful sound Elara had ever heard. Police officers flooded the room. 3, 4 of them. Their weapons were drawn, and behind them, her face a mask of grim, victorious determination, was Helen, the advocate. The time was 7:06. Aunt Clara's call, made at exactly 7:05, had worked. "Mom, step back," one of the officers commanded. Elara stood, moving away, her legs finally, beginning to shake, the adrenaline starting to fade. Marcus gasped, pulling air into his lungs. He started to get up, his mask of the charming husband snapping back into place, even as he winced in pain. "Officers, thank God you're here," he panted, pushing himself up on one elbow. "This woman, she's insane. She broke into my home. She attacked me. She's my wife's crazy sister. She's obsessed. I want her arrested. Immediately." The lead officer, a tall man with a tired, seen-it-all face, did not even look at Elara. He looked down at Marcus. "Brandon Morrison, you're under arrest." He pulled out handcuffs. Marcus froze. "What? This is ridiculous. This is my home. I'm the victim. I'm telling you, she attacked me. I want her arrested. You are under arrest for domestic violence, assault, unlawful imprisonment, stalking, and terroristic threats," the officer said, his voice, a flat monotone, as he pulled Marcus' arm behind his back. The click of the handcuffs was deafening in the suddenly quiet room. "This is a setup," Marcus started shouting, his face turning an ugly, mottled red. "My wife is behind this. isn't she? Where is she? Where's Seraphina? When I get out, she's going to pay for this. Do you hear me? You'll all pay. I'll have all of your jobs." The officers exchanged glances. "Add terroristic threats made in front of an officer to the list," the lead cop said, hauling Marcus to his feet. As they dragged him toward the door, still shouting about his lawyers, his family, and the revenge he was going to take, Marcus looked back. His cold, blue eyes met Elara's. "You can't protect her forever," he hissed, his voice pure venom. "I'll get out. And when I do—" "When you do," Elara said, her voice clear and strong, "she'll have a restraining order, an ironclad assault conviction, and a sister who is not, and never will be, afraid of you." They took him out. The door closed. And the house was silent. Elara's legs finally gave out. She sat down, hard, on the perfect, sterile, white couch. She touched her split lip, wincing. Helen came over, her professional demeanor softening. She sat next to Elara, not too close, giving her space. "You okay?" Elara looked at the shattered vase. At the overturned magazine, at the spot on the floor where she had taken her sister's life back. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was shaking, but it was her own. Is it enough? Is it ironclad?" Helen looked at her, and for the first time, she smiled. A real, grim, satisfied smile. He confessed to felony assault. On video, he admitted to a pattern of abuse. On a high-fidelity audio recorder, he was documented stalking his wife. He threatened to kill her, and then he threatened you, in front of 4 police officers. His family's money can't buy him out of this one. She put a gentle hand on Elara's shoulder. "He's going to prison, Elara. For a long, long time. It's over." Elara let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 7 days. For 4 years. She pulled out her own phone. Her real phone, which she had kept hidden in her sports bra. Her fingers, still trembling, dialed a number. It rang once. "Elara." "Oh my God, Elara." It was Aunt Clara's voice, frantic. "Put her on," Elara said. A second later, a small, terrified Elara. Elara closed her eyes, the tears finally coming. Not for her. For her sister. "It's done, Sarah," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It's over. Has gone. You're free. You can come home now." Thank you for following this story. If you want to see more stories of justice and revenge, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends, and hit that like button. Well, see you in the next one.